Powered by Go-Goat Sports in partnership with TSN, it is episode 49, season 4 of the Ray Dregs Hockey Podcast. It is presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. We had Scotty Rintoul on the podcast in episode 48 to talk about West Coast Express, an elongated podcast, which is terrific stuff. So if you haven't had the opportunity since then to check it out, we encourage you to do that now, which gives us a little bit more flexibility here, Ray, on Thursday to take as many Ask Ray and Dregs questions as we can, because we didn't have that time on Tuesday. So here in episode 49, we're going to do that after headlines. How's your week going, my friend? Everything good?
I'd say it's been a really good week. I had one little speed wobble.
Okay.
Which, of course, everybody gets. In the days don't roll together perfect, right? So
no.
Cammie and I, spring break going on. You're long past spring break, Dregs, but
I am.
It's a big spring break's a big thing, right? The kids are pumped, they're off, and so this week, first week of spring break, we're kind of anchored at home because Riley, our 16-year-old, still got soccer until he's got a game Saturday, and then we're going to scoot for the next week. So we're going to go to Phoenix, and then I got to go to Dallas and Pittsburgh for a game, and then we're going to meet back in Vegas and spend a couple of days there because I've got a game on the following Tuesday.
Yeah.
So, it's a pretty straightforward plan. However, Reese's passport is expired.
Oh, no.
So we've got two options, really. We could leave him and go on our own, or we could, go to the passport office for the expedited passport.
Right.
Part B of that is during the week, one of us is working, so somebody has to go to the passport office.
I wonder who that somebody is.
How long do you think that took, Dregs?
Well, based on social media experiences, I'm going to say between 6 and 8 hours.
5 hours and 25 minutes. And so unfamiliar with the process as I am. So
oh, boy.
It says passport office is open at 8:30.
Right.
So I get there at 8. I'm early.
Yeah.
No, the passport office is at 8, but there's this holding tank, basically.
Oh, yes. All the people.
Oh, my gosh. There had to be 150 people in there.
I know. It's daunting.
And so I walk in. I get up to the counter. Like, honestly, everything was really organized. I get up to the counter. I don't have Reese's birth certificate.
Oh, no.
I got to drive 30 minutes back home. 30 minutes back. So the 5 hours didn't start ticking till there. So really about 6.5 hours. So then for the first part, I thought the numbers went in sequence.
Okay.
And so my number was Y008.
Yeah.
And so they're going on like S, and I'm like, it's not bad. There's a lot of people that'll roll through. And then it goes to W and then a U, and they're all different categories.
Just
so
random.
Then, yeah. But it's not random because it like whatever the S's are, those are all going in order, and the W's are. So now I see Y004. I'm like, this is great. This is like in the first hour, Dregs.
Yeah.
I'm going to be out of here in no time.
Mm.
And then it went, I didn't see another Y for about 2 hours.
No.
And so I'm like, by this point, I've already done all my work. I brought my computer.
Yeah.
I've read most of the book I'm reading. I've played 43 games of this word game that I play. Mm-hmm. I got nothing to do. So I get a text and it says, look up. And I look up, it's my agent. He's standing in line, but he's already done this, and he's picking up the passport.
Oh, boy.
I wanted to go punch him right in the nose. I was so I got in there. Well, the second time I got in there at about 9:45, and I squeaked out of there by about 4:00. It was an ordeal. Yet everything was organized.
Yeah,
everything was. Only one person totally lost the plot. This guy he had lost it. He had it. And the people are like, yeah. Like they just stood there and let him yell himself out. And they're like, I was like, that is wild. And then eventually they got him out of there, and
So end of the story here. Did you invested a lot of time and there were some hiccups in the process, but did you get
I got to go back
passport
today.
expedited? Okay.
I gotta go back today for pickup, and so until I have it in hand,
you don't want to jinx it.
Reese is still in danger of not coming on the trip because I'm going.
Well, so I'm envisioning, because we've traveled so much together, just the different facial expressions, the mannerisms, the rubbing of the head, all of this throughout this ordeal. But I had not a similar experience, but an experience where I tried in my mind to bring Ray Ferraro into the equation yesterday.
Peace, right? Calm.
So
no,
we're about to board Air Canada flight for Toronto from West Palm Beach, Florida yesterday. Now you've flown out of Florida, similar to Arizona, any sort of hot destination where seniors reside. Well, you know that there's going to be a lengthy run of wheelchairs to get onto the plane first. Well, that's fine. You know what? The airline does a great job of getting those people on board as quickly as possible. So they're all funneling through zone one. Okay, again, what do I care? But I'm fortunate. Chris Johnson was traveling with me. He's also in zone one. So we're lined up behind this parade of wheelchairs. So they get the wheelchair folks on board safely, and we're now next. And this woman with two late teenage boys is standing on the outside of the zone one rope, and like there must have been 75, 100 people basically lined up, congregated, right? And she looks at me, she goes, "You can't be zone one." And I'm like, "No, yeah, I'm zone one." "No, all these people can't be zone one. You guys can't all be zone one." And she's like yelling at it, "You can't be zone." And I'm like, so I literally take my boarding pass and I show it. I said, "Zone one." And CJ did the same thing, and she's like losing it. So I'm like, "What are you, like the zone police here?" It was like a Seinfeld episode.
What zone was she?
Zone one. But
back of the line.
That was exactly the point. Yeah. I mean, CJ was getting hot because this lady was just over the top, right?
Right.
Over the top. Well, so I'm lucky enough to be sitting in business class. I stash my bag. Guess
she's right beside you.
Sits right beside
yes,
me.
I love it. Oh, now, did you hog the armrest or were you?
Yeah, I mean, we literally just looked at each other and chuckled and just.
Isn't it amazing though? Like we all, I think the hurry to get on board though, like she wants to get on, right?
Yeah.
The only real hurry to the whole thing is I just want to put my bag up.
Yeah.
I don't care if I'm on the plane first, last, whatever.
Yeah.
I just want that damn bag to get up over top because I cannot check a bag. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
By the way, I got 4 games coming up on this trip, Dregs.
Yeah.
At the start and the end of it.
Yeah.
Do you think I can pull it off with one suit?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I hope you like my suit Saturday night in New York because you're going to see it Saturday and then the following Thursday in Dallas.
Yeah. Well,
couple of shirts.
So this is coincidental because I was chirping Chris Johnson all week. We do 3 hits, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, from the meeting site in Manalapan, Florida. He wears this trendy sort of electric blue blazer, right?
Right.
And I'm like, you can't wear 3 days in a row because it's so bold, right? Like if you're wearing the same jacket for 5 straight games, I'm guessing it's going to be like a dark blue or something like that. Because then you can change the shirts. You got
a couple of pocket combos. Squares.
That's
it.
Good.
That's the one.
There you go. All right, let's go into headlines here, and we'll talk about some of the things that were discussed at the GM meetings this week in Florida. But Jordan Binnington of the St. Louis Blues earned spot 1 on our list of headlines for blowing a gasket last night in the fashion that he did in the game versus the Minnesota Wild. Now, his coach, Craig Berube, after the game, if you haven't seen it, just Google it. You'll find it very, very quickly. Ryan Hartman of Minnesota Wild scores the go-ahead goal for Minnie, make it 5-4. As he's cruising across the front of the crease, not in the crease, but above the blue paint, he clips Jordan Binnington, getting to the scrum of celebrating Minnesota Wild players. Well, we've seen this act from Binnington before. I mean, he loses it. He goes hard right after Hartman, and the shenanigans just erupt. And here comes Marc-Andre Fleury, the flower, from the other side. And I don't know about you, man. I'm old school, and I know that you've been close proximity to probably more than a few goalie fights over the years, dating back to the Western Hockey League. Man. Yeah, Ron Hextall comes to mind. But I'm like, come on, I want to see this. I want to see this. They get separated. Binnington gets a match penalty and ejected in the second period. Darren Pang was called in that game, and he is absolutely vibrating in all of this. And then Berube postgame says, hey, Hartman had no business cruising there. He was in the crease. Well, he wasn't in the crease.
Right.
But I loved, and jump in on all of this, because I loved what Binnington said postgame in acknowledging that he knows how Ryan Hartman plays, but he had no problem with what he did. And he had, he said, hey, I like this guy. He plays the game hard. You know what to expect. To me, I love the fact that he just, he just said, hey, it happened. I did what I did. He did what he did. Everybody move on. There's nothing to see here.
Well, of course, it gets broken down 43 different ways. Should he be suspended? Yeah. Should he be this, that, and the other thing? The game at times gets messy. And now I'm not a proponent of the lawlessness of the 80s.
Right.
I mean, that was
mayhem.
Times. Craig Berube's talking about it. He was one of the great perpetrators of mayhem in the history of the game. The guy had 3,000 penalty minutes. Just think of that.
Yeah.
3,000. He sat for 50 games in the penalty box.
I was just trying to work that out in my head quickly. How many games or hours?
Just think, 3/4 of a season, he sat in the penalty box.
Jeez.
And that doesn't count the times when he was kicked out of the game, right?
Right.
For beating somebody up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, I mean, Binnington this year, more than any other, has been, his frustrations have just bubbled over to where the Blues are. And he's an emotional guy to start with. Hartman didn't do anything wrong.
Not really.
The one thing the goalies always have is they always have the backing of their team.
Yes.
They can lose a screw, and if they start getting filled in, somebody's jumping in. If a player gets filled in, he gets filled in until the other guy gets tired of punching him.
Yeah.
That's just, you've seen that old clip of Billy Smith when he's fighting Lanny McDonald. They drop the gloves and Billy Smith waves away his defenseman to get into the fight. You've seen that clip, haven't you, Dregs?
I have. Yeah.
Could you imagine that today? A goalie telling his D-man to scram and then he gets in the fight? I think the league walks a really tough line, and I think this will get into something that we're going to talk about from the Quebec League, and
Correct.
That's the games that are the best are the games with conflict. Too many times the game becomes a real similar game. It's fast. There's no real conflict. They play, beep,
Agreed.
Stop, whistle, move on. Yeah. It's the same game without head-to-head combat. And that doesn't necessarily mean fighting. However, and I'm no proponent for fighting. I don't care if there's fighting or not. It really doesn't.
Yeah, I'm there with you. Now I am. Yeah.
It really doesn't.
Yeah.
If they banned fighting, I'd want to know what the other side of it looks like. What the results tell us the game becomes.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's nowhere near a factor like it used to be.
Not
what
even
happened
close.
Last night was a lightning bolt. and it was entertaining, and I'm glad it doesn't happen all the time. And Binnington got his major in a match, and it was entertaining to see maybe the nicest guy in the game lose it, like Fleury coming down the ice. Like, and by the way, out of all of that, Minnesota's got 14-game point streak going. They don't have Kaprizov. They scored 17 goals in 3 games. He's out.
Yeah,
like they're on a pretty good run here.
Really good run. I had a good visit with Billy Guerin and his wife yesterday at the airport. Just solid people.
Wait, that GM and that coach, would have been right in the middle of that thing when they were playing. Both of them.
James Sobalski comes to mind when I only bring his name up because I can't remember who said it, but they reference Seaball as being all teeth and flippers. He's skinny and he's always got that big wide smile and long fingers. And so as I'm watching this unfold with Flower coming down the ice, for whatever reason, that came to mind, that description. Here comes Flower, all teeth and flippers. Okay, well, you mentioned the QMJHL, and there's been some reporting on this. The Major Junior League is expected to ban fighting this June. So in 2020, they took a hard position here. Of the 3 Canadian hockey leagues, we're talking the Ontario League, the Western Hockey League, and the QMJHL, which is Quebec and the Maritimes. In 2020, the QMJHL added a 10-minute misconduct to the 5-minute major. So I hear what you're saying, and I'm with you. I don't know that I'm not going to miss fighting if they ban it. The struggle that I have with it, though, is, as we just described and talked about what happened last night between the Wild and the St. Louis Blues, sometimes there's spontaneous combustion. Sometimes there is. And if that's what it is, then sure, make fighting the penalties as punitive as you need to. But now if you're banning, what does that mean? Like, you fight, you're obviously automatically ejected from the game. They haven't worked out all the rules, by the way, just to be clear, in the QMJHL. But, you know, if it's a top player, as an example, you're starting goaltender. Like, if something in the game of hockey, which can still be physical, erupts, and there's that fighting response, and players now are ejected or maybe they're suspended, I mean, feels like there could be a bit of a tipping point with this one, Ray.
Well, first thing I thought of as you're talking there is, so you've got a guy that is star player on the other team, or one of their top players. Yeah. What's to prevent your 4th line guy to run into him, punch him in the nose enough times that the guy gets mad, punches him back, and then eventually they fight? Do both guys get kicked out?
Yeah. Don't know.
You know, like, and don't think the gamesmanship wouldn't happen because it would. I think there's almost a natural evolution to the elimination of fighting. Like I mean, I played in a time that if there wasn't a fight in a game, it was newsworthy.
Yeah, it was a soft game.
Yeah, and now when there is one, you stand up and take notice. Now, I gotta say, I don't mind it, the thought of it in junior hockey. And the reason is, it's quite possible you watch a 19-year-old beat up a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, does that really need to be?
Right.
You know, the
answer is no, it doesn't. You're right.
Right. I mean, I remember back, a decade, and my son was playing junior, and he's 17 years old, and he gets in a fight with a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, the only thing I'm hoping is he gets out of there okay, because what the hell is he doing, and why are you fighting that man?
Yeah, one's a man, the other one's a young man developing.
It's just a kid. Yeah. And so I don't mind that thought. I really don't. Because I think that is a real safety issue.
So I have deep respect for your opinion on this. And it's curious to me that Enrico Ciccone, I mean, you would have played, did you play with him?
No, I played against him.
Yeah, of course you played against him. He's now a Liberal member of the Quebec National Assembly, right? I don't know how many times he fought, but that was part of his role, right? As
I would
an
say the
NHL
answer's
tough guy.
I would say the answer's lots.
Yeah, yeah. But he has been advocating and pushing for this ban and this crackdown on fighting in junior hockey for quite some time. And my understanding is, without talking to Enrico, and maybe we should have him on to talk about it, it's based on what you just said and the safety and the differences between one age group and another age group and everything that he would have had to have gone through, like you did and your teammates did back in the craziness of the Western Hockey League back in the day. So I always have time for people who I push back, ODog, Jeremy Roenick, live TV will say, yeah, but you never played the game. Well, that's fine. I can understand that with some of the subtle details, when it comes to goal scoring or things like that. But I've been in the odd fight, and that it's a dangerous scenario, right? And we're doing everything we can in the sport, not just at junior hockey, but in the NHL level across the globe, literally, to make the game safer. Cracking down on head
I
injuries,
would say, Dregs,
etc.
I don't think there's any question. The game is safer today than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And for those that say it's not, they should have played in the 80s.
Poof.
Because I'm telling you, there were nights out there, and my goal was to find the quiet spot on the ice. Because there were some games that got out of hand.
Just flat out dangerous.
Because the emotion had been revved up into like a tempest. Like it was going to come out somewhere. When Enrico says, I read a quote of his that, he doesn't want, the kids today to go through what we had to go through. That would be the only thing I would really disagree with him, is because they don't. It's not the same. The rules have been maybe not as quickly as some people would like, but they've been authored to the point that the game is just not what it used to be from a physical standpoint. And that's a good thing. Like, that part's a good thing.
Agreed. GM meetings wrapped up yesterday in Florida. No recommendations coming out, and that's fine. That just tells the world that the game is in a pretty good place. That doesn't mean they didn't discuss some tweaks. On Tuesday, we talked about, the potential of additional video review, be it a coach's challenge or the situation room handling that. So an interesting tidbit surfaced, was thrown at me yesterday, and then I explored it further. There was a good amount of discussion on extending overtime from 5 minutes to 7 minutes. And, they test drove this idea in the East Coast Hockey League, and they found positive results. They did. And I think there's a couple of ways to look at this. And obviously I want your opinion, whether you think it's a good idea or it's not a good idea. It would reduce shootouts. You're always looking for ways to enhance entertainment, added value, right? And I'm in the camp that I would much rather see the game decided, even though 3-on-3 can be gimmicky, right? It's still hockey. And we can see that the skilled players and sometimes the not so skilled players, be impactful in that environment. So is that 2 extra minutes going to make as big a difference at the top level of the sport, the NHL, as it appeared to have made at the East Coast League level?
Well, I think so. So it's funny you bring this up today, because last night I watched a couple of different overtimes. The Toronto-Colorado overtime was awesome. It was a track meet, man. It was chance, fast, up and down the ice. Then I flick over to the Washington-Buffalo overtime, and I wanted to stab my eyes out.
Yeah.
Slow.
Yeah.
Nothing happening. Come back out to center ice. Regroup back at your blue line. Come in. Nothing happening. Why the hell do I want to watch 2 more minutes of that?
Right.
Honestly, it sucked. It was terrible. Brian Burke had this idea, and for all of Berkey's bluster, he's got some ideas that the more you think about, you go, he's not, like, he's right. The problem is sometimes they get snowed over in Berkey's bluster.
Yeah.
he had this thought a couple of years ago about that you can't, once you have possession of the puck, you cannot go back over the red line in overtime.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that keeps the pace of the game.
Sure.
It moves. And I'm like, and if you go over the red line, they blow the whistle and they drop the puck at center ice.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first couple overtimes will be chaos. It'll be boring and some guy will forget and all that. But pretty soon the guys will adjust to it. I thought when the shootout came, I loved it. I thought it was going to be great. I don't think it is anymore.
Yeah.
Less shootouts, I'm into it.
Yeah. So there was a thought by one manager I spoke to about this yesterday. Automatically think, well, could there be pushback from the Players Association? Because for the most part, who's going to be impacted most.
Okay, by the way, use your
guys.
Bench then. Does that mean the coach is going to actually have to think back there? So you don't overload instead of standing there and getting free water? That's okay. Use your bench.
Yeah.
It's a team game.
But could there be pushback where it becomes more of a burden for the top players to add that extra time? Maybe, but as this manager said to me, yeah, well, you know what? The top guys are going to pad their stats too. And that doesn't matter when you're coming up to contract time.
Okay,
of course that
Dregs, it does matter, sure, but I'm going to go. I was kind of being a smart ass, but I'm really not. It's like manage your bench.
Yeah.
If you're playing Connor McDavid 29 minutes because it goes to overtime, well then Jay Woodcroft, you've got to dial that back a bit. He's going to think about it.
Sure.
Those guys are going to go, wait a minute, I'm playing these guys too much.
Yeah.
I like it.
I
think it bears a further look.
Yeah, and then
use it in the. You know what? Use it in the preseason.
Ooh.
Decide right before the regular season.
Yeah. Well, it's a good idea to do it that way. But just to wrap up here, the process, as is so they take the conversation from the GM meetings in Florida to the competition committee, which is a joint of NHL owners, players, managers, that sort of thing. And then if they want to further pursue, then it gets pushed through and voted on it ultimately by.
You're saying board. This is going to zip on through.
Yeah, I may not be that quick. Those are your headlines. Chris Abbott normally joins us Tuesdays, Thursday. He's a high-ranking Betano.ca executive in charge of a lot of stuff, right?
I think that's actually on his desk. His cart, in charge of stuff.
A lot of gambling stuff coast to coast. So unfortunately, he's tied up in meetings, but we're going to handle this segment brought to you by Betano.ca. Available in Ontario, Betano says the game starts now. Rob Gray suggests, because this was brought up by Chris not that long ago, that we revisit the odds and the lines on the teams that are fighting to make the playoffs. We did this, a few weeks ago? It's an interesting topic.
Changes fast, doesn't it?
Yeah. So let's look at the teams, 2 teams in the East, 2 teams in the West.
Okay, I'm looking right now.
Florida Panthers. You're not going to make much money if you bet that the Florida Panthers are going to make the playoffs, because right now the line is plus 100 that Florida makes it, and dash minus 133 that Florida does not make it. They're on the outside, but there's still lots of maneuvering there with the uncertainty of the 2 wildcard spots.
Yeah, so the real issue there, of course, is Florida's got 3 games in hand.
Yeah.
As does Buffalo.
Yeah.
And they're poking around the Islanders, who only have 12 games left.
Yeah.
So the problem with, the games in hand are great, but you got to win them all.
Yeah. You look after your own.
And it seems, I think the Islanders are going to get in. I don't know why. I mean, okay. I can do math, Dregs. You're pretty good at math, right?
Yeah.
But I think the Islanders are going to squeak their way in there somehow.
Okay.
And it might be because their goalie is having an amazing year.
What about Buffalo? Buffalo's plus 500. Yes, they make it. Minus 909. No, they do not.
I don't think they're going to make it. I think they're just going to fall short.
Yeah. And a few weeks ago, I might have made that bet. I might have. That Buffalo
to the
was
yes,
going to make
you mean?
it. To the yes. Yeah.
Well,
but I'm not there now.
Last week, Dregs, they've given away games in overtime.
Yeah.
And a shootout, and they had the lead late in the third period in both of them. Those are some valuable points, and I think that's probably a byproduct of their youth and inexperience and the fact that they use 3 goalies. And, if you've got 3, you don't have 1.
Brad Treliving, the Calgary Flames general manager, man, he was under the radar this week in Florida, and I get it, right? He did his media availability yesterday, so it's not like he was hiding from anyone. But Tree, you've been around him. He's a very social guy. He likes to, have conversation and whatnot, and he kept it pretty low key this week in Florida. The Flames right now plus 250 to make the playoffs, minus 357 to not make it. I don't think they're going to make it. And I'm looking with concern at Winnipeg because the Jets aren't playing very well either. But there's something off in Calgary. I just don't think they're going to finish strong.
I'd take the no and feel pretty confident about it.
Yeah.
Only because what makes you think all of a sudden Calgary's going to get on a heater? They just haven't. They just haven't. They don't
not
score
to this
enough.
Point. No.
And I do think no matter how much oil that Winnipeg leaks, they still have Connor Hellebuck. And I know he's kind of lost it a little bit here, but I think he'll play enough good games that Winnipeg's going to get in. Actually, Nashville's probably the bigger problem because they got 3 games in hand. And isn't it funny? Nashville went and traded all those players and picked up all those draft picks for Barry Trotz to start next year, and they still might make it. Pretty interesting.
Minnesota Wild. I mean, they're making it. Minus 2,500. Yes, they make it. So you're not betting on that. And plus 1,000.
Oh, they're in. How are they? What are they going to crash the team bus? I mean,
I was just curious. I threw them into the mix just because.
Yeah, well, don't.
It jumped off the page.
What could go wrong? What could go wrong? No, I think the Wild have put together. The team that I look at and I'm like, man, they must be confounding to coach is Pittsburgh.
Oh boy,
they're going to make it, but ay.
Not dissimilar to Calgary. It just smells like change is coming in Pittsburgh in a myriad of ways. I'm not going to isolate one individual and say, okay, he's out. Anyway, there's a lot of work to get done there. Yeah. All right, Chris Abbott will be back on Tuesday. We hope. I mean, he might have another high-level meeting, and then he'll just have to push us to the curb again. That's fine. That's fine. We can manage.
That's the way he does it. Thanks, Abs. Thanks for your time.
Well, when he's here, you know what? We still do the segment, and we're proud to do it. Compliments of Botano.ca. Yep. Again, the game starts now. Time for Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. We missed it on Tuesday, so we're going to expand it to 4 or 5 questions today. Why not? You can send your questions to us on Twitter, Instagram, our social address at Ray and Dregs, or on the website, rayanddregs.com. Ooh, a Toronto Maple Leafs question, Ray, from Steven at S. Davidson 34, obviously a Leafs fan. Sheldon Keefe keeps changing his defensive pairs. Shouldn't he stick to something to get some chemistry? And then does Luke Shen stay in play?
So I look at Toronto a little bit like Boston. And, Boston's kind of stumbling around right now. They're trying different things in their lineup, and the Leafs are doing the same thing.
Sure.
The Leafs are playing Tampa. Boston's playing whoever gets the second wild card. I think until you get to 7 games left, between 5 and 7 games in the season left, you should experiment when you have this kind of leeway. Figure out what you like. Yeah. But those last 5 to 7 games, you've got to dial in. You've got to be locked into what you want. So A, there is some familiarity for the players, but B also is that everybody understands what their role is. They settle into it and they're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as moving in and out players, or changing pairs, I don't know if that's even a bother right now. I don't have a problem with it. As for Luke Schenn is your sixth defenseman if he's in your lineup on a really good team. And so the question becomes, does he replace Timothy Liljegren or not?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. That might depend on their opponent, which in this case is Tampa. And maybe Schenn is a better choice because he's bigger against a forecheck that Tampa hopes is heavy.
Yeah. I think Liljegren was better versus Colorado, who choked out the Leafs, by the way, right? I didn't see all of that game, man.
Dregs, it was like, okay, so I'll tell you why I was really impressed with Colorado is I think of the Avs and I think McKinnon and that high-octane offense and Mikko Rantanen, who I think is the most underrated superstar in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Although if it's possible to be underrated, Leon Draisaitl is too.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's got 44 goals and 100 points again.
And lives in a shadow. It's ridiculous.
But Colorado checked that game into submission.
Yeah.
They lost Lehkonen now for a month.
Yeah.
They don't, Landeskog is not a player for them, unfortunately, at this point. They don't have Darren Helm. They haven't been healthy all year. And that game there was no room anywhere. And that's a concern for me for Toronto because you're going to have to play those games.
Yeah. All right. From Josh Hagstrom, at Josh Hagstrom. What's your opinion on Barry Trotz becoming the general manager for Nashville? And mine is I'm not surprised. The man clearly is a wealth of experience as a coach for so many years. And you wouldn't have the success that Barry Trotz has had as a coach in the National Hockey League without being deeply connected to management and personnel decisions to make your club better. Every general manager that Barry has worked for would have showed him that level of respect. So, there's going to be some growing period here, right? I mean, he has to understand.
I was going to say, Dregs, what stands out to me is the communication with the other managers to, his first big test is going to be the draft.
Right.
And then right after that is free agency. Mm-hmm. And so it's not that clearly Barry's capable of player personnel decisions and hard decisions that he'll have to make on a player to keep or move but it's going to be the execution of those that'll take him a little bit of time to get his feet underneath him. But Barry's a smart, thoughtful guy. He really is. Mm-hmm. And I guess it's pretty clear why he didn't jump back into coaching.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there were some rumblings that this was considered prior to the start of the season, but Barry just wasn't ready. He had some family stuff, his dad. He had some things that he had to tend to, and he was going to use the opportunity of time to do that. And he's certainly done that. How about a fun one from Twitter? From Jason Malika, I believe is how you say it, at Jas Malika, Jas Malika. Important Italian-centered question for Ray. Mm. Did your family call it pasta sauce or gravy?
Pasta sauce. we had just sauce. The gravy, I never did quite understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, gravy's gravy. It goes on chicken, it goes on roast beef, turkey.
And by the way, the sauce that Nona made.
Yeah.
So at one point, my aunt took a bunch of Nona's recipes and she followed Nona around the kitchen and took the measurements and this and that. And we all have those recipes. They're unbelievable.
That is cool.
What a great idea from my aunt, my Auntie Norma, one of the great ladies. Oh man, she's just amazing. Anyway, the recipes are in the back of this book that they put together about Nona's life.
Wow.
Which is like, it's a family gold star. We just love it.
Okay.
When you cook those recipes, Dregs,
Yeah.
They don't taste like Nona's.
That's fine.
No, but I mean, like it's her recipe.
Yeah.
And Auntie Norma said, yeah, because she'd go, you put this much in. So she'd be running around with a measuring spoon, measure it. But then she'd say, okay, like, a half a teaspoon or something. And then Nona would throw in some more. And you'd be like, how much is that? Nona was amazing. Amazing.
Look, we're giving out a good amount of Ray and Dregs merchandise today, right? So Jason automatically gets a shirt or a hat. All right. Instagram at Seth Monkhouse. Do you think Hockey Canada should develop a Canadian version of the U.S. National Development Team program? We've talked about this in a previous season, either season 1, season 2. Just my quick thought, I would love it. I think it would be great for that level of player to have that kind of development and exposure and competition. What I don't like is what it would do to major junior hockey, right? The OHL, the Q, and the Western Hockey League. I think taking those players out of the mix would be tough.
Well, it would be. They do it in the U.S., though.
I know.
And the USHL continues on. The downward pressure on the junior leagues is not going to go away. There seems to be more discussion. Dregs, you would know more about this than me. That, what if a team could take a first round pick and play them in the American League? Only one per organization, or like that puts downward pressure on the leagues. If you had the National Development Program, that would put downward pressure on the leagues. Is that a good thing? I don't know. Maybe that means there's too many junior teams.
Yeah.
Which is another possibility. There's one other thing to this too. I used to know what it cost. I don't know what it cost anymore to run that program.
Would be a lot.
It's in the millions of dollars.
Yeah, it would be a lot.
And so that's a significant consideration too.
Okay. 2 quick ones. All right. And then we'll wrap up here. Dave is asking, Ray, what is the protocol for after the trade deadline? Do general managers approach the players that were heavily rumored to be traded, but don't end up getting traded, and explain, maybe even apologize to them? And has this happened to you in any way? Did it happen to you over the years? Different life because there wasn't social media, but the scrutiny is still the same. You still feel the same, and your family takes the brunt.
Yeah, nobody said anything. Deadline's over. You're still here. I'll never forget. We were in Quebec City one game. We have a pregame skate. The visiting team was on at 11:30. The trade deadline, for whatever reason, was noon Eastern.
Yeah.
The clock clicked over from 12 to 12:01, and Dave Babbage yells, "You can't get me now!" As we're skating around. But no, there's no, to my knowledge, not much to very little communication after the deadline.
I walked into the Ottawa Senators dressing room a few years back, pre-COVID. Mark Borowiecki was still with the Ottawa Senators. As soon as I walked in, he went, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah, that couldn't be good news.
No, it was like a week before the trade deadline. He's like, the cross, he's like, "Get out of here." All right, last one. As of tomorrow, hockey no longer exists in the world at TSN or ESPN, but each of us are required to cover a team sport. Can't be golf, Ray. Which sport are you choosing to cover for the rest of your broadcast career, and why?
Oh, baseball. Not even close.
No.
For me, absolutely. Baseball. Go into a city for 3 days, set up shop, broadcast, tell some stories. I could tell how, I don't know if I've told you, Dregs, once or 8 million times I played in the Little League World Series. I could tell that story quite frequently,
Yeah.
Would you like to hear that again?
No, because John Gibbons is coming up. He's going to join the Ray and Dregs podcast next week, I believe. And I'm pretty sure it's coming up at that point, correct?
Well, if you don't think so, I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to say, hey, have you ever heard of anything as great as this?
Well, I bumped into Mark Milliere, who's a former boss of both of ours, and he works closely with Gibby at the airport the other day going to Florida. And he, we're setting up this interview with Gibbons, and he says, Ray played in the Little League World Series, didn't he? I said, is that the first time you've heard this, Mark? Come on.
The two stories that I like bringing up more than anything is that, just because it's ridiculous. It happened, 45 years ago. The other is anytime the Players' Championship is on, with the Island Green on 17.
Right.
No matter who I'm sitting with, I'll always say, do you know anybody that's birdied this hole? And they'll always say no. And I'll go, well, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you're sitting right beside him. All right, merch. Let's give some Rain Dregs merch out. Compliments of Canadian Club. Thank you. I like the pasta sauce gravy.
It has to be that one for sure.
Jason, thank you. You're getting some of that. What about Dave and the protocol of whether or not managers go to the players who have been heavily rumored? That's a good one.
You know what? I like that because people are curious. Yeah. And they want to know what exactly happens. And I'm sure it's different team to team, but nobody ever apologized for me for not trading me. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right, buddy. So you're coming down to now. You got a little bit of time, right? Because as you've described, you've got to head to the passport office. You've got to get the updated passport, and then you're going to Arizona for a bit of time.
Well, yeah. First to New York. I don't know if you know. To get to Arizona, you got to go to New York first. So we got Rangers. Rangers and Penguins on Saturday, which will be their third game this week. And then out to Arizona, a little break, and before we connect for next week. By the way, I do want to say one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you could pick anyone to trade places with right now, I'm going to pick Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, I was going to bring this up earlier in the podcast. This guy is magical when it comes to marketing. If Ryan Reynolds invests in a pair of shoes, I'm buying that stock. Yeah.
So in the last couple of years, he sold his gin company.
Yeah.
Which whatever percentage he had was, I think, was that 600 million, something like that.
It could have been higher, Ray.
The mobile carrier yesterday sold for a couple of billion.
Yeah.
He's doing okay.
He's doing okay and shrewd. I can't remember what the series name is, but Mark Wahlberg is part of a group that
not the soccer one.
No,
that's Wrexham.
He owns. Yeah, no, that's Ryan Reynolds, right?
That's what I said.
No, I know, but Mark Wahlberg, the actor, he owns a company called Municipal, I believe is what it's called.
Okay.
But very similar stories now to Reynolds, right? Like they get in, they put their marketing muscle behind these products, and he's done, I think, tequila, and he's doing footwear, and he's doing clothing, and he's buying this and that, and they flip them within a couple of years and just make mega bucks. See, that's what Ray and Drake should do.
Yeah, so what's our product?
Whatever.
Right.
Whatever. All right, buddy. Well, we'll let you go. You got a bit of a whirlwind tour, but a little bit of
by the way,
with the family.
one more time. Yeah. One more thing. Got this in the mail the other day. From Joe Buono.
Oh,
and it's a book.
Islanders A to Z?
Oh, my gosh.
How good is that? Yeah.
I'm holding it up on YouTube. So it's called Islanders A to Z, and it's all done in cartoon characters.
Right.
Shocker. The one I open up is C is for Captain. It's Pat Flatley, and you can see the enormous head that Flats has.
So I just assumed that F would be for Flatley.
No, C is for Captain. Because,
okay.
Look at the visor on this thing.
Oh, there you are, Ray Ferraro. See, people have to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see this because that's a terrific.
But my visor's like a welder's mask, which of course it was. But by the way, if you're an Islanders fan, seriously, Joe sent this. Thank you, Joe. It's awesome. What a way to, if you're an adult, to read quickly through, but if you're a kid, to get connected to the Islanders.
It's a great looking book.
It's really awesome. And so if you get a chance. Ollie just jumped down. Ollie, do you like it too? Oh, yeah. Ollie's pumped up about it. But check it out. Islanders A to Z. It's Joe Buono. Buono.
And most importantly, partial proceeds from the book, Ray, going to the Islanders Children's foundation.
Outstanding.
So, nice
Outstanding
gesture.
work, Joe. Thank you for sending.
Yeah, well, thanks for reminding us to get that in. That was important. All right, buddy. We'll let you get on with your day, get on with your weekend, and some downtime eventually with the family.
Yeah,
over spring
looking
break.
forward to it, and I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks for listening, and we'll check in next week.
Yep. Shout out to our partners who make the podcast possible twice per week. Our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey, who ask, are you over beer? Botano.ca, it is available now in Ontario. And remember, Botano says the game starts now. And by Doer, use code RNDPants, and you will save 15% off everything Doer offers. Check them out at Doer.ca. That's episode 49 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Ooh, Ray, Tuesday, a big one, a milestone episode 50
Of this year.
Of this year, yes. Hopefully there'll be many more. Thanks for listening and watching, everybody. Stay safe.